Happy Friday.
Good morning, everybody.
It's like, it's kind of good that it's dark outside because, we've had a drought. I just read in the
Yes.
paper or online, the online version of the paper. Apparently, up in northwest Minnesota, someone's farm just kind of just dropped 25 feet,
Yeah.
like a big chunk of land because of the.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's so dry up there. Yep.
But now we're getting some flash floods, and
Now we're getting some rain. It's nice. Morning,
makes it
CK.
hard to light up my face when everything's dark like this. But so I'm sorry if I
You're
look washed out.
doing a good. Well, you're doing a good job.
Thanks.
So, one of the things I've noticed is that since I've gotten the COVID vaccine and I'm magnetic now, that the robot birds have an easier time finding me. So I've noticed fewer of them in my yard. They don't need as many to keep track of me.
I thought it was. I have seen less too, and I thought it was because I was magnetic, but like negative, so I was repelling. Because magnets, there's two sides.
Yeah, no, I know.
Negative.
I think it's easier for them to keep track of us now,
Okay.
so they can deploy their resources elsewhere.
I saw a great meme about it's like our plan has been brilliant. We decided to put microchips in horse deworming. This is the newest thing, like people taking horse deworming medicine instead of the vaccine because that's somehow safer.
It's safer to be killed by horse deworming medicine than by taking the vaccine. Makes total sense.
If you think about it.
Or if you don't think about it. Like if you say it really quickly. And yeah. All right.
Just a segue to Empire. CK will care about this. This isn't from the store, but I made a pumpkin spice latte for myself this morning. You can tell it's homemade because there's all the particulates of spice that are usually made into a syrup at the chains.
So this is I texted Ash the other day. This is like Christmas carols before Thanksgiving. I'm now seeing shit for pumpkin spice before it's even fall. It's like that is beyond messed up.
I want to start a petition to get these like Starbucks and Caribou just to have it 365.
Well, and what's really bad is that the week that it's happening is the week where my anti-pumpkin spice ally Kathleen is on vacation, so she can't even come to my rescue and help me.
We are winning.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so good though.
Pumpkin spice shoe polish.
I mean, it does tie into here's how it ties to Empire, colonization and spice. Boom.
It's true. It's all about the spice.
Spice. The spice must
flow. Dune movie coming out this fall
with the sandworms.
Woohoo! All right. We need to somehow get on track.
Yeah, we're talking about. I mean, even the Dune movie is about colonization and empire.
Yes.
And I mean, some foreign powers come and take over a desert planet that has a lot of spice, which is the most important nutrient thing in the universe. I mean, why else would we be involved in anywhere in the Middle East or Middle East adjacent? Which to me is like Afghanistan is like, is that the Middle East or is it East at that point? Where's the line?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Afghanistan is just its own location.
Pakistan, the Middle East?
No, Pakistan is South Asia.
South Asia. To me, Afghanistan would be South Asia.
Well, yeah, that's.
I mean, I don't
sort
know.
of in between.
You need geographers.
Yeah.
Share
but here's one of the things that all of this requires, whether it's Afghanistan, what's happened in Central America. We talked on Monday about how we're probably revving up to do this stuff in Africa, which obviously is a repeat of what's happened there. I mean, an enormous part of this that I think we just have to keep in mind is that it's about othering and it's about then control.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the idea that these people in all these places are not really people. You know, they're not as intelligent. They live in the Middle Ages. They, you know, don't have great civilization like we do. They, you know, there's this, that, and the other problem with them that, of course, we have to fix. And then it's reasonable for us to control them. And this need for control and this incredible compulsion for control, you just see not only throughout the entire foreign policy imperial issue, but you know, this is what's behind this whole police thing that's been going on and continues to go on. Right? Is that this need to have an agency that can control is so deeply embedded within our culture, and you know, and then this is what ultimately leads to fascism, right? Fascism becomes the uber controller when people feel more and more anxious and like things are going to fall apart.
Mm-hmm. It's I've been getting into my next, like last couple of days I was sick, so and I didn't want to work, so I just decided to go engage Nextdoor app.
When Ash goes on Nextdoor,
It's so much. It's so
it's bad.
fascinating. But yesterday in the mail, we got a thing from the mayor and chief Arredondo saying vote no on this referendum, like scary
Right.
kind of thing. And then also that day, someone on Nextdoor posted a slow motion doorbell video of someone walking and stealing their vote for Jacob Frey kind of sign. And then they called the, so like, look at this person. You know, they even look like a stereotypical liberal because they're wearing green socks. That's cool. Because you look kind of like, well, vaguely fashionable in a modern sense. Like that's it.
Okay.
And then they called the police on this person for stealing their free yard sign. And all the people were like, yeah, we need to stop these, you know, meh. I'm like, this is such a perfect example of like, okay, if I saw someone visually stealing even my Black Lives Matter sign, which is more important than a vote for Jacob Frey sign, I'd be like, I'll have to get another one now. Like, nowhere in my mind would it be to like execute vigilante style justice on them. But this is like, and this might seem silly, but like this is where fascism lives. That somehow the idea of calling in armed people to and like enforce some sort of like control over someone for a minor, like very minor violation because you've decided that they're a garbage person.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of where, and so, and they're voting for Jacob Frey. So they're a Democrat. Like, this isn't like, he's not the right wing candidate. Right. So you just
all right. We got some,
yeah.
We got some good comments and some fun comments. Let's roll through them.
Good morning, you anti-fascist. Yes, thank you.
Good morning, CK.
Some other good mornings from James from
and
Alan.
Awesome.
Gus says, well, you also got that 5G signal going out.
Yeah, that helps the robot birds.
Well, and that's how they keep, you know, once you're magnetized once, magnets kind of lose their magnetism. So 5G keeps us magnetized. That's how it all works. Okay, I haven't seen enough on that, but it makes common sense.
It's common sense.
Pumpkin spice.
Victoria, I used to like you.
But... You know what, though? We all have to have our token spice friend.
That's right.
Call me Posh Spice. CK, it has begun. He who controls
Yes.
the spice controls the empire. I can't wait for this new Spice film to come out, just so I can
I know.
rewatch the earlier David Lynch Dune.
That'll be fun.
James writes, Biden saying the military answers the call. Yeah, with "Here I am, send me" is the perfect quote for Fascist Friday. So that's the thing. So he quotes this, this is for the calling of the prophet Isaiah. Who will go for us? Whom shall we send? Here am I, send me. Like this calling of a prophet is used for like to say that the military has been answering the call. Who shall go for us? Who shall I send? It's like nothing says prophetic witness like American imperialism around the world.
Right. Yeah. Well, and this, and of course all these people getting killed, absolutely horrible. And of course far more Afghanis were killed than Americans, but we pretend as if they kind of don't exist.
They were going to die in somehow in a dirt
all
pile
of these,
somehow anyway.
all of these
That's
people
how
being
people
killed is horrendous. But the way immediately this now vaults us into the new war on terror.
think.
Like
Yes.
immediately Biden is like, okay, great. Now we got the new war on terror. ISIS K, or what is it, like they now take a lot of ketamine or something? I don't know.
I know.
So
The Lambda
and
variant of
yeah.
terrorism.
And so it's just, and because as we mentioned on Monday, all these corporations have reaped trillions of dollars from this war. War's winding down. Well, they need to sell more weapons, right? So off we go. Now we've already got the new war ready to ramp up. Exact same rhetoric. Nothing changes. Here we go again. So
I'm already seeing the people who hate Bush defending why Biden has to do all this because his hands are tied and he inherited a mess. That kind of logic. It's just this is how fascists win. Ellen writes, next door has been wild lately. Around here, next door people often complain and say that they call the cops because someone looks through the recycling. Yeah. I see all sorts of pictures of someone standing in the alley kind of looking around. And so then they post a picture on Nextdoor saying this person in a hoodie has been scoping out places to steal. So be on the lookout and call the cops. I'm like, an alley is kind of like a street.
Oh my God.
Even if they're scoping out, you can't premeditate. You can't like call the cops because you think something might happen from some random person. That's not, anyways. Yeah. Good point. Don writes, geography is based on Europe as the center.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah, and not only Europe as Europe as the center, then literally relative to all these other places, but of course the maps that we use, and the standard map of the world that you see in American classrooms and all around, that literally has England, Greenwich as the center of the map, the center of the world, and then everything radiates out from there. Also has Europe looking way, way bigger than it actually is proportionally. Mm-hmm. So why isn't Europe the Middle East relative to the native peoples in North America? Or so it's and this is one of these things in terms of our formation that is just so naturally everywhere. We're hearing it all the time on all the various news sources, books, educational materials, that just gets in our head, and mm-hmm. we never even consider it.
Carol writes, this morning I read a bunch of sources on consortium news. Afghanistan is the seventh poorest country in the world. Islamic socialists do not want just a few to reap. Caught up with trying to get money, financial help for their rich mineral deposits from China, Iraq, the Soviets. Greedy U.S. I don't know what MIC means. In their
Yeah, I'm
faces
not
for
sure.
decades. Well, I mean, this is a thing. There's a reason. There's financial, economic, and military reasons to be in Afghanistan that have nothing to do with altruism. And so,
Yeah.
which we talked about on Monday. But yeah, and this is what happens with Africa. So as we get into Africa, this is always the trope. I heard this all the time growing up. I still hear it if I pop my head into certain spaces. That somehow Africa is somehow intrinsically messed up.
Yes.
That has nothing to do. They've had plenty of time since colonization ended. When I was a baby, like ended in the sense of a legal sense, maybe, right? But still continues on. That they haven't got their act together, and so like Western powers come in and it's helpful. Development work, like if you start saying that people do it, engaged in development work, or somehow part of an imperial system, they'll act like you're cuckoo for suggesting that they're NGOs are part of a problem in colonization. Meanwhile, these countries are poor, even though they're incredibly resource rich, and the stuff gets extracted. Where does the money go? Like, so if you explain to someone who is entirely, U.S. centric in their political imagination, that capitalism is depleting resources and exploiting people in Africa, and that somehow the problem isn't that these Africans are dumb and they keep voting for bad people. Like, that is such a hurdle for people to get past that. Because the only way you understand it is having a real analysis of colonization and capitalism. And if you do that, then our entire sense of self as U.S. Americans is jeopardized.
Well, and then when you add in the religious piece, right? And so
yes.
you have a huge number of Christians, so-called Christians, that actually believe that all these poor people in Africa are going to hell, and they also believe that they're poor because God is not blessing them because they haven't heard the gospel, and so you've got all this massive religious industrial complex of all these people going over to Africa, to save all these people, and then they're going to be better off materially once they're saved, right? And all of this is part of this incredible legacy of conquest. And people know nothing about the history of all the numerous African kingdoms and going back hundreds of thousands of years, literally, including Christian kingdoms, right? I mean, people think that Africa didn't become Christian. I mean, I was just a friend of mine wrote a great thing.
Until YWAM started sending people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Until YWAM came over there, right? And know nothing about these incredibly complex and diverse cultures and kingdoms, and it's sort of ignorance layered on top of ignorance.
Well, and then just adding to just to tie this into fascism, and been listening to history podcasts, and part of like why the Spanish fascism came about was these military exploits in Africa that failed, and this need to just blame somebody, right? So we see this happening. We're seeing this set up for this now. Like it would be easy for someone to fall into this foolish thinking that somehow Trump ascending to power was our fascist moment and we've moved past it. But we really haven't gotten to the, oh my God. It's obvious to a lot of us that the United States is a declining empire, but it hasn't really gotten to that full part of like post World War I Germany or pre-Spanish Civil War Spain or these other countries like France has like we have to, once we kind of realize how shitty things are and there's this need to flex in order to show American might in a way that is full fascism. I mean, that's coming. Like you can see that happening, and this Afghani situation is kind of like could very well be first step towards like full on fascism, because we have to blame somebody for the fact that we're not a glorious empire anymore. That's where fascism comes from. And so, yeah. I mean, we're just repeating ourselves because I think we say that almost every Friday. Gene writes, political bashing is anti-American. Extreme weather disasters affect all countries, rich and poor. But as we face a future with enhanced risks, it is critical to face the reality of those who bear the burden of our changing climate. This is an issue of justice. Those living in poverty are the hardest hit by climate change, despite being the least responsible for the crisis. Climate change is forcing people from their homes, bringing poverty on top of poverty and increasing hunger people in, and it drops off. And just a reminder, anything over kind of this length will get cut off by our system, so we can't read the end of it. And I mean, that's another piece of this, like climate change and the refugee crisis that'll come from that.
Yeah,
it's all factoring into all these things that we're talking about.
Yeah, I just wrote a long article about the issue of water in the entire Tigris and Euphrates ecosystem, and how basically water is disappearing from that part of the world at an incredible rate. So all throughout Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Saudi Arabia. And this is a major crisis in the making. And we think that trying to get 20, 30,000 Afghanis to America is some sort of, horrendous refugee crisis. That's going to be nothing compared to, what happens when 25 million Iranians, have to move somewhere or do something different. And right. And so this is where this constant othering, at some point clearly becomes untenable. And you can either have a response of justice and love and compassion, or you can have a fascist response. And the problem, the thing that's stacked against you is that, the people in power, what they're constantly thinking about is, how can I make more money off of this? Right. And so, just in the same way that we talked about that in terms of agriculture, that drugs are one of the main things that make money. War is also one of the main things that makes money in a capitalist economy. And so there's often a push to that, so that those in power, whether it's extracting resources and or providing the cover for those who are extracting resources, can make more cash. We've got a bunch of comments here.
Both James and Claire point out that MIC stands for military industrial.
Yes.
It makes sense. Thanks.
Yes.
CK writes, I love how Biden uses his son's death as the liberal blood sacrifice. It's
incredibly painful.
Yeah, but I don't want to go down that road, but yes. Gus writes, my hands are tied. I literally was forced to hit my sibling is the kind of bull I hear from my kids. And people recognize it as nonsense when it comes from kids. Yep.
Yeah.
Stefan writes, as the Crash Course Eurocentrism song says, we're Europe, the prime meridian runs through us, we're in the middle of every map, and we've got to be a continent, even though we're not a continent. Map with large letters, contiguous Eurasian landmass. Search it on YouTube. It's a cute 10-second song.
Okay, great.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
It's pretty hilarious.
Gus writes, and YWAM worked with the CIA in some of those countries.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I mentioned a little bit of that in my book on Kingdom, and it's so funny. Like, it's documentable. Western missionaries have been working with, Western countries the whole time, and it doesn't even have to be like sneaky. and intentional. It's just like, well, I'm an American, so I'm going to pass information on to my country because we're good guys. Like doesn't even have to be intentional and willful espionage going on in some of these cases. But yeah, Jim writes greetings, and I'm
Thank
assuming
you.
that's thank you,
Yeah.
or
Hey,
Tucker
Jim.
University.
Tucker University.
James writes, Eden drying up should be important for the Back to Genesis crowd.
Yeah, there is some irony there, right?
Yeah. Jim writes, the U.S. is a sad story of so much potential, so many resources to improve humanity, squandered. In your opinions, can we become what we think we are or were?
Yeah. Well, I see. I would say that it's not were, and I think the only way to become the kind of thing that I think you're imagining is that we have to repent of the evil that has been done to create the United States. And
this is where the critical race theory in
and
schools thing is such a.
I hear. So many, I mean, I've heard so many times from white liberal folks in the last little while, well, there's no sense of public good anymore. We used to have this sense of public good. I'm like, well, we used to have a sense of public good for white people. We certainly didn't have a sense of public good for Black people or for brown people or for Asian people or for Native American people. And I think that we need to get rid of this delusionary state that we white folks get into, that the U.S. somehow used to be nice and great, and now we're going to hell in the handbasket. No, this current state that we're up against is simply a reboot of this evil spirit that has always been present. Right. And again, we've mentioned the native folks talk about this Wendigo spirit, that white people showed up and just like wanted to consume everything and kill everyone. And, we have to be willing to address that.
Now, just to kind of get a little bit systemic a little bit here, I think there's this bad habit that we have to break. And this is a plug for anytime Dan and I do stuff on spirituality, I feel like we try to talk about this. We have this idea that somehow we have these values, that if you put the good values in there, like democracy and hope and camaraderie, and then you kind of shape people individually to act out those good values, then the sum totality will percolate out and will be good people doing good things in the world. When really it's memory, like the things that we remember about ourselves to be true, habits, and myths, and these things are more determinative than some sort of vague sense of values, because everyone shares like these sorts of like love, camaraderie, peace, justice. Like Hitler cared about those things too in some abstract way, right? Mm-hmm. So until we can actually tell the truth about ourselves and change our systems and tell different stories about things, we're screwed.
Yeah.
This is where liberals always fall into this. There's still this individualistic mentality that it's about individual morality and having good intentions somehow scales up, and that's just not true.
Yeah, I mean, and a Black pastor friend of mine wrote about this the other day. You could tell just how frustrated he was, and he talked about the fact that all of this anti-racism education is basically just a great cover for white liberals. Mm-hmm. And, they read these books and they go to these classes and they do these studies. Mm-hmm. And then when push comes to shove to actually change institutions or change economics or change behavior, they all balk. And, and that's this thing that you're talking about, is that, all these individuals think they're changing their minds or, getting their act together or whatever. But then when it comes to a systemic thing like where do taxes go, or Let's increase taxes on wealthy people and send them to, historically economically deprived neighborhoods, or let's talk seriously about reparations. Suddenly this emotional reaction emerges from these people. They're like, no, rah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's that formation. And or they're on next door going, oh my God, this person's stealing my sign, I'm going to get them. So
Yep.
I lasted 5 minutes on Nextdoor.
No, it's
And
you
then
have
I
to
was
put
like,
in kind of like humorous detachment, otherwise, yeah.
oh,
Okay, so here we go. Carol writes, less than 10% of Afghans' GDP is from drugs.
it's true.
Daniel writes, wait, the fact that YWAM did that is wild, yet it does not surprise me. And it's not just YWAM, but YWAM is worth talking about because I think it still is the world's largest missionary agency. So it's big and it's everywhere. And then there's some really fucked up people in upper leadership and dominionist theology and stuff. So it's just really gross. Just gross. Although I will say I know some people, individuals within YWAM who are not gross. So any big organization is going to have some interesting, good people in there. Gus writes, America has always been awful. Why do you hate America so much, Gus? If you want an amazing picture of this, Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz's book, Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States, season 4 of Seen on the Radio is another that does a great job showing this. And there was that HBO miniseries, like Exterminate the Brutes.
Exterminate the Brutes.
Yeah, and I think Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz is referenced in that. I think she had part of her way of engaging history is the approach of that miniseries. So I think that's also a good thing for people to check out. Good in the sense that it's meaningful and important, not good in the sense that it's fun and enjoyable to watch. Unfortunately, telling history is painful. Jim writes, I hope this is helpful. Recent experience participating with family and extended family in the Van Gogh experience, and then eating at a new, or Van Gogh, there's always schools of thought on how to pronounce his name. Van Gogh experience, and then eating at a new venue in the U District was a reminder that we are a diverse, multicultural country and more reflective of a major change in demographics. It was so good to be immersed in a large setting featuring foods and beverages from cultures literally all around the world, and with mostly young people who are the growing tapestry of America. And then it cuts off there again. And there's some hope there, but it's also like we have to get to the question of power and who has power in the society, and how much are we going to let the weight of our past determine our future instead of like making a radical break in new directions. It's like a big messy thing. We have to have hope.
And and this is something that all spiritual traditions talk about, right? So when Jesus says the kingdom of God is within you, or the kingdom of God just passed by, did you see it? Or the Zen tradition says, well, you're already enlightened, or the mystical Sufi tradition talks about that the best part of yourself is already within yourself. There really is a very short journey kind of from here to there. I mean, that's one of the tragic paradoxes of all of this, is that we don't have to go to some other planet or solar system or whatever to find the kingdom of heaven. It really is possible for it to be right here. But what it does require is that, and this is why one of the great images in the spiritual tradition is crossing the river, right? And Sirius actually wrote a great little poem and story about this. That you just have to go to the other side, but that journey is sometimes really, really hard. And you have to be willing to let go of a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, the possibility is all around us, and it is very important to keep that in mind.
I guess this will be the last comment. James writes, the history of Christian mission and its being tangled up in colonialism is a big tragedy. Most missionaries weren't nefarious in their partnership, but they poisoned the well. I mean, this is the thing. Intentions aren't as determinative as people like to think.
Yeah.
You bring with you the uprooted uproot wherever they go.
So, all right. Well, great to be with you all. And thank you for all your comments. As always, good to see folks. And we will be back on Monday.
See you next
with
week.
Some new topic.
Later.